The evening sun hovered low over the desert plains, casting a golden haze across the wagon trail where Elara sat barefoot in the dirt, her faded pink dress stained from days of struggle and sleepless nights. Her children, 7-year-old Jacob and 5-year-old Madeline, clung to her sides, their arms wrapped around her, as if afraid the wind itself might steal her away. The wagon behind them had broken down 2 days ago, leaving them stranded miles from the nearest town. The journey had already taken everything from them, their home, their savings, and the last hope Elara held that her husband might return from the war. She held a crumpled letter in her hands. The words almost burned into her mind, missing in action. She didn't want the children to see her cry, but they could feel the heaviness in her trembling breath. As the dust rose along the trail, Elara lifted her head to see a lone rider approaching, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a rifle slung across his back, a steady gaze, and a horse that strode with quiet authority. A loyal border collie trotted beside him, its attentive eyes fixed on the little family as though sensing their need. The man slowed down as he neared them, stopping just a few feet away. He dismounted, his boots stirring soft puffs of dirt as he walked toward the wagon. "You folks all right?" he asked, his voice deep but gentle. Elara swallowed, nervous and exhausted, but she met his eyes. "Our wagon wheel cracked," she whispered. "We were trying to make it to Willow Creek, but we haven't eaten since yesterday." The man nodded, kneeling beside her children, offering them water without hesitation. His dog wagged its tail softly as if offering comfort. "Name's Colton Hayes," he said. "I run a ranch about 10 miles west. Place is quiet, got food, got shelter. You're welcome to rest there till you figure things out." Elara hesitated. She had heard stories, some kind, some cruel, of ranchers who took advantage of desperate travelers, lone women especially. But she saw something different in this man's eyes, a sincerity, a patience, a heaviness of his own. "We just need to get to town," she murmured. "I have family, or I hope I do." Colton stood, looking from her to the broken wheel, then to the horizon. "Town's another day's ride from here," he said. "Kids won't make it in their condition. Let me help." Her children looked up at her, both hopeful and afraid. She exhaled and finally nodded. Colton lifted the children gently onto his horse, while Elara walked beside him, too proud to be carried, but too weak to hide her limp. They reached Colton's ranch near dusk, a modest home surrounded by open fields, a small barn, and a peaceful silence that felt like a blanket around their shivering hearts. He helped them settle inside, cooked them stew, and even mended Jacob's torn shoes. The children warmed to him instantly, but Elara remained guarded, unsure if kindness like his came without a price. Late that night, while the children slept on soft quilts they hadn't felt in months, Elara stepped outside and watched the stars. Colton joined her silently. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "I know what it's like to lose someone." She looked at him, surprised. He continued, voice rough with memory. "My wife passed 5 years ago. Some days, it still feels like yesterday." Pain recognized pain. She lowered her walls a little. "I didn't want to leave home, but I can't raise them alone out there," she whispered. "I don't even know if town will give us a fresh start or another heartbreak." Colton looked at her with a steadiness that made her feel seen for the first time in years. "Then let me take you there," he said. "But not tonight. Rest, heal, tomorrow. I'll hitch the wagon and ride with you." Elara nodded, too tired to argue, too broken to dream. She lay awake half the night thinking of the road ahead, wondering if she was making the right choice, wondering if this rancher, with kind eyes and calloused hands, was a blessing or another trial sent by fate. But Jacob and Madeline slept safely for the first time in weeks, and that was enough for now. Morning broke softly over the ranch, the smell of fresh bread drifting through the air as Elara helped Colton prepare the wagon. Madeline giggled when the border collie nudged her with its nose, and Jacob watched the rancher with admiration, already mimicking his movements as if learning how to be strong again. Elara stood quietly, feeling the bittersweet pull in her chest. This ranch, this brief shelter, had given her something she thought she lost forever: peace. And Colton? He was still a stranger, yet she felt safer around him than she had in years. As they began their journey to town, the children rode in the wagon while Elara sat up front beside Colton. The road ahead was long and dusty, but his calm presence made it feel bearable. They talked, hesitantly at first, then openly. Elara confessed her fears about starting over, raising the children alone, and surviving in a world that had taken so much. Colton listened quietly, offering not hollow comfort but quiet understanding. He told her about his ranch, his late wife, his long days working alone, and his fear of letting anyone close again. By midday, Jacob and Madeline napped in the back, their small bodies curled beneath a warm blanket. Elara watched them, then turned to Colton. "Thank you," she said simply. "You didn't have to do any of this." He shook his head. "Sometimes we don't choose who we help," he replied. "Sometimes life drops people in our path because maybe, just maybe, we're meant to." They reached Willow Creek by late afternoon. The town was busy, filled with noise. Wagons, merchants, and strangers who brushed past without a second glance. Elara felt swallowed by it all, the chaos overwhelming after days of silence. Colton walked with the children, while she sought out the only relative she had left, her estranged aunt, who lived behind the old church. But when the door opened, the woman stared at Elara coldly, refusing to take them in. "I've got no room and no responsibility for you," she said sharply. "Your troubles aren't mine." She closed the door. Elara stood frozen as tears filled her eyes. The children clung to her skirts. Colton stepped beside her, jaw clenched at the sight of her pain. "Let's get you somewhere warm," he said. But she shook her head. "Colton, we don't belong anywhere." He lowered himself to her eye level, lifting her chin gently. "You belong somewhere," he said firmly. "Maybe not here, maybe not with them. But you and your kids deserve a home." They spent hours searching for work, shelter, anything but every door shut before it opened. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, Elara finally whispered the words she had been avoiding. "Colton, can you take us back to your ranch?" He looked at her quietly for a long moment, then asked, "Only if you promise to come back home." It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even a condition. It was an invitation, one wrapped in hope. Something in her heart shifted. Home. The word didn't feel painful anymore. She nodded slowly. "Yes, we'll come back home." The ride back to the ranch felt different. Jacob leaned against Colton's side. Madeline slept in Elara's arms, and for the first time in months, Elara felt the stirrings of something warm in her chest. Safety, belonging, maybe even the first spark of healing. When they returned to the quiet ranch, Colton lifted the children from the wagon and carried them inside with a tenderness that made Elara's eyes fill. She watched him, realizing that some people don't enter your life by accident. Some arrive exactly when your world is falling apart, because they're meant to help rebuild it. Colton met her gaze, offering a small, hopeful smile. "This place is yours now," he said softly. "Stay as long as you want." She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Colton, thank you for everything." He shook his head gently. "You don't owe me thanks. Just keep your promise. Stay." And for the first time since her husband vanished, Elara felt like life wasn't ending. It was beginning again. A new home, a new hope, a new story.